of other several African countries participating in the second China-Africa Economic and Trade Expo from 26th to 28th September 2021. The three-day expo is taking place in the Changsha city, central China's Hunan province, and is expected to have an estimate of 9,000 attendees in a hybrid event that will have an online attendance as well. During an interview with Smart24 TV, Paul Koti-Lakuma, the Makerere University economist, hailed the current China-Africa Agro Expo, saying that it will promote growth in Uganda's sectors such as agriculture, health, infrastructure, and post-COVID cooperation in regard to sharing vaccines and knowledge on how to control the pandemic, among others.
One is promote agriculture. The second is infrastructure. And the third is health. And the fourth is post-COVID cooperation in regard to sharing vaccine, sharing knowledge on how to manage the pandemic successfully, public order, things, how to manage lockdowns and stuff like that, and how to manage the spread of the disease. So I think Uganda stands to benefit.
Paul says that the expo will promote cooperation among the two countries in terms of sharing vaccines and sharing knowledge on how to control the current global pandemic. He notes that Uganda has been trying to put emphasis on agriculture for the last 10 years.
All those three areas are areas where we have put a lot of effort in the last 10 years. The area of trying to promote agro-industrialization, value addition, that is in agriculture. COVID-19 has exposed our health sector and shown that it's not what we thought it was, that there's much more work.
He further says that the gas and oil sector will also benefit by acquiring knowledge on how to extract it to the maximum, adding that currently the trade between China and Africa is 52 billion, making a relationship acquired from the expo a key instrument to discuss how to expand the relationship further and also expand its value in terms of money too.
And then we have our oil and gas, which we still need to acquire knowledge to extract it to the maximum and to extract the benefits to the maximum. So those are areas which I think how Uganda could benefit. Currently, the trade between China and Africa is 52 billion. I think this expo offers a platform to discuss how to expand this relationship further and expand the value of, in terms of money, of that relationship further. So that's it.
All right, now, if you're looking at the situations of the upcoming expos in Africa and those worldwide, Uganda can actually use the same platforms to see that we boost our agriculture sector, as well as seeing that everything goes as well as it was planned. Now, according to Mr. Paul, he says that Afghanistan is he actually says that the Chinese expo can actually be more important for each one of Uganda's sector in a way of boosting the economy to tapping into the available markets worldwide, as well as seeing the gaps that are actually affecting this. Now, Mr. Paul Koti-Lakuma is at Makerere University economist who was actually speaking to Smart24 in regards to the significance of the Chinese Agro Expo, the Africa Chinese Agro Expo, that he says can actually boost the agriculture sector in Uganda and the economy at large. Still in Uganda though, as police in Kampala has kicked off investigations into an acid attack on Centenary Bank manager. The incident, according to the Kampala Metropolitan Deputy Police spokesperson Luke Owaisigire, happened at around 5 p.m. in Makinje near the KCCA offices. More of this report.
Police in Kampala have kicked off investigations into circumstances under which Centenary Bank manager was attacked by unknown assailants and poured acid on him. The incident, according to the Kampala Metropolitan Deputy Police spokesperson Luke Owaisigire, happened at around 5 p.m. in Machindi near the KCCA offices. He explained that By the time police arrived at the scene, the victim, Patrick Katandazi, a chief manager for the corporate section of Centenary Bank at Mapera House, had been rushed to Sambia Hospital for more treatment. He noted that the liquid splashed on the Centenary Bank manager, burning him and the clothes he was dressed in, whereas part of the driver's seat was also burnt. According to Kampala police, the scene was examined and samples of the liquid were picked and submitted to the government analytical laboratory in Wandegea for more analysis. With the help of CCTV cameras, police is hopeful that the assailants will be arrested as soon as possible. According to police, despite being a common practice, a couple of years ago, acid attackers had greatly reduced.
The acid incident, according to Kampala Deputy Police Spokesperson Lukowe Sijire, happened at around 5 p.m. in Makinje near the Kampala City Council Authority offices. He explained that by the time police arrived at the scene, the victim, Patrick Katandazi, a chief manager for the corporate section of Centenary Bank at Mapera House, had been rushed to hospital in Zambia for further treatment. He noted that the liquid splashed in the Centenary Bank manager, burning him and the clothes he was dressed in, whereas part of the driver's seat was also burnt. According to the Kampala police, the scene was examined and samples of the liquid were picked up and submitted to the government analytical laboratory in Wandegea for further analysis. All right, on to the next story. As the National Social Security Fund has announced a 12.15% interest rate as savers prepare to share 1.52 trillion Ugandan shillings. Now, while speaking during the 9th annual members meeting, the Finance Minister, Honorable Matia Kasaija, hailed National Social Security Fund (NSSF) for the resilience despite the onset of the pandemic that ravaged the entire world economies. Have a look at this report.
The National Social Security Fund (NSSF) would give its savers a 12.15% interest in their savings for the year 2020-2021, an increase from 10.75% that was paid out last financial year. The total declared translates a total of 1.52 trillion that will be shared among members, higher than 1.14 trillion that was paid to members in the previous financial year. Speaking during the annual members meeting, the Finance Minister hailed NSSF for resilience despite the onset of the pandemic that attacked the whole world. The Minister noted that the growth of the fund is not by accident, but rather a deliberate vision and strategic focus. The performance highlights indicate that the fund's assets increased by 17% from 13.3 trillion to 15.5 trillion, and comprehensive income increased by 25% from 1.47 trillion to 1.84 trillion. Dr. Peter Chimbowa, the newly appointed Chairman Board of Directors, reassured members that the fund would continue to create value for them and give them the good return higher than the 10 years of inflation. But the NSSF Managing Director, Richard Byarugaba, says there has been a slowdown in the contribution by members due to the harsh economic condition, saying that growth in contribution has been slowing down over the years.
The rate declared translates into a total of 1.52 trillion that will be shared among the members, higher than the 1.14 trillion Uganda shillings that was paid to the members in the previous financial year. While speaking during the 9th annual members meeting, the Finance Minister hailed NSSF for the resilience despite the onset of the pandemic that ravaged the entire world. The Minister noted that the growth of the fund is not by accident, but rather a deliberate vision and strategic focus. The performance highlights indicate that the fund's assets increased by 17% from 13.3 trillion to 15.5 trillion, and comprehensive income increased by 25% from 1.47 trillion to 1.84 trillion. Dr. Peter Chimbowa, the newly appointed Chairman Board of Directors, reassured members that the fund would continue to recreate value for them and give them good return higher than the 10-year inflation rate. But NSSF Managing Director Richard Byarugaba says there has been a slowdown in the contributions by members due to the harsh economic conditions, as the growth in contribution has been slowing down over the years. This means businesses are not doing quite well in the economy. Still with the local scene, we head to Entebbe International Airport as mandatory COVID testing is set to cost a sum of 780 billion shillings, government has said. Now, officials involved in the planning meetings of the Inter-Ministerial Committee that is in charge of the exercise say that the government plans to spend roughly 78 billion Ugandan shillings on setting up the laboratory, sample collection, waiting areas, among other items that include payments of salaries to the staff at the airport. More of this report.
The government is set to spend at least 78 billion to set up and operate a testing center for arriving passengers at Entebbe International Airport for the next 1 year. Mandatory COVID testing for all passengers is expected to commence next week. This is contained in a confidential government operational plan for implementing the cabinet directive of undertaking mandatory testing for COVID-19 at Entebbe International Airport. According to the reads of the report, in order to implement the cabinet decision, the Minister of Health, supported by the UPDF, will take over COVID-19 testing for all international passengers from the private practitioners at a cost of 100,000. Last week, President Museveni postponed the commencement of the exercise by another 2 weeks during the televised address on September 22nd. Officials involved in the planning meeting of the Interministerial Committee that is in charge of the exercise say that the government plans to spend 78 billion on setting up the laboratory, sample collection and waiting areas among other items at the airport. Of this, 44 billion will be spent on testing kits, 15 billion on completion of the arrival hall, as well as 4 billion on salaries and allowances for the 60 staff at the center, among others.
The 78 billion Ugandan shillings that is going to be spent at the Entebbe International Airport for preparation of those that are traveling abroad and also those that will be actually coming into the country. 44 billion will be spent on testing kits alone, while 15 billion will be on the completion of the arrival hall, as well as 4 billion will be on the salaries and allowances of the 60 staff members at the center, among others. So you could definitely see the distribution of the 78 billion Ugandan shillings. And the other money will actually be used for other use as well. But if we're to completely see that officials involved in the planning meetings of the Inter-Ministerial Committee that is in charge of the exercise said the government plans to spend over 78 billion on setting up the laboratory, sample collection and waiting areas as a way of curbing coronavirus disease. And what you should also remember is that last month, before this particular month, testing at the Entebbe International Airport was at 230,000 Ugandan shillings, where there were private best laboratories where people would actually go and test. Now the government actually took this as part of the governmental entity to see that the collection, to see that the testing is part of the UPDF health sector that will be in charge of the international inbound passengers for the private practitioners at only 100,000 shillings for someone to actually get tested and receive the results before entering the country or before setting off from Entebbe International Airport to the overseas. All right, now following up on to the next story in regards to the business news. URA has acquired 27 baggage and cargo scanners to strengthen inspection of imports and exports. John R. Musinguzi, the Commissioner General of the URA, appreciated this first bunch of the scanners with the support from the government and NACTEC. The government has invested over 100 billion Ugandan shillings to support customs work and in the end contribute to at least 30% of the country's revenue. More of this report.
The Uganda Revenue Authority has acquired 27 cargo scanners to strengthen inspection of imports, exports, and also address security controls at the different border points throughout the country. The new scanners are an addition to those stationed at Malaba, Busia, Mirama Hills, Elegu, Entebbe, and Mutukula one-stop border posts. Manufactured by Nukitech Company Limited, the scanners have advanced X-ray, intrusive technology that has been adopted world over in security and inspection. John Musinguzi, the Commissioner General of Uganda Revenue Authority, appreciated this first bunch of scanners with support from the government and Nukitech. The government has also invested 100 billion to support custom work in the end contribute at least 30% of the revenue, saying that the country's economy is growing, and with this kind of technology, Uganda should be able to meet the tax to GDP ratio in the next 3 years. He also encouraged staff to equip themselves with skills and exercise high levels of integrity while operating the equipment. Abel Kagumire, the Commissioner of Customs, promised an addition of 12 scanners by October, which will be stationed at all 39 border stations countrywide. With the scanners in place, there will be no excuse on revenue law.
You are with this kind of technology as the economy is growing rapidly fast. This technology would help Uganda to meet the tax to GDP ratio in the next 3 years, as the government has heavily invested in over 100 billion Ugandan shillings to support the customs work and in the end contribute at least 30% of the revenue. And Abel Kagumire, the Commissioner of Customs, promised an addition of 12 more scanners by October, which will be stationed at all 39 border stations countrywide. With scanners in place, there will be no excuse for contraband and revenue loss from untaxed goods. So anyone out there who's trying to run away from the taxes, I mean, more technology is actually being put on the border, so you should stay very cautioned and stay warned that the government is inputting more and more to see that no one runs away from the taxes, that every Ugandan pays the taxes, and to see that they check out on the fake products right from the border before they actually enter into the local market. Let's move on. Ex-presidential candidate Kabuleta has unveiled new political movement to promote economic empowerment among Ugandans. While unveiling the National Economic Empowerment Dialogue in Kampala on Tuesday, Kabuleta said that the political movement is constituted of politicians who currently hold no office but have influence in their respective sub-regions and are able to start meaningful discussions that shall see Ugandans fight for their resources. More of this report.
Former presidential candidate Joseph Kabuleta has launched a new political movement aimed at promoting economic empowerment of Ugandans. Unveiling the National Economic Empowerment Dialogue NED in Kampala on Tuesday, Kabuleta said the political movement is constituted of politicians who currently hold no office but have influence in their respective sub-regions and are able to start meaningful discussions that shall see Ugandans fight for their resources. Kabuleta said on average, winners at parliamentary level get 30 to 35% of the overall votes, and the other 65 to 70% goes to losers. Therefore, that massive fraction of the electorate that voted for the would-be silver and bronze medalists feels disenfranchised. Therefore, there is a need to harness those wonderful ideas from the runners-up by offering them a platform to express themselves. He noted that as need, they will focus on holding conversations throughout Uganda that will change the political dynamics of the country.
Kabuleta said on average, winners at parliamentary level get 30 to 35% of the overall votes, and the 65 to 70 goes to the losers. He noted that as need a new political party, they will focus on holding conversations throughout Uganda that will be seen as a way to change the political dynamics of this country as well. Now, just a quick reminder, Joseph Kabuleta was among the presidential candidates of the just concluded 2021 elections in Uganda as well. Now, while unveiling the National Economic Empowerment Dialogue, his new political party, abbreviated as NED, in Kampala on Tuesday, Kabuleta said that the political movement is constituted of the politicians who currently hold no office but have had influence in their respective sub-regions and are able to start meaningful discussions that shall see Ugandans fight for their resources. Let's move on. Busia Chief Administrative Officer has been summoned over misappropriated funds worth 49 million Ugandan shillings. The funds were part of the Uganda National Roads Authority UNRA's compensation paid to Masafu Sub-County for encroaching part of its land, that is the Masafu Sub-County playground, during the construction of the Musita Lumino Majanji Busia Road. More of this story.
John Rex Achila, the Busia District Resident Commissioner, has summoned Joseph Balisanyuka, the Chief Administrative Officer, over misappropriation of 49 million Ugandan shillings. The funds were part of Uganda National Roads Authority UNRA's compensation paid to Masanafu Sub-County for encroaching part of its land, that is Masanafu Sub-County Playground, during the construction of Musita Lumino Majanji Busia Road. The money was meant for the construction of Masanafu Sub-County headquarter offices in Mumutumba Trading Center, so that the sub-county gets separated from the newly created Masanafu Town Council. RDC Achila has tasked the CAO, who is an accounting officer, to explain the evidence how the sub-county money was misused between his office and the office of the sub-county chief. They have also constituted a committee led by the District Internal Security Officer, the DISO, to investigate, and if the CAO fails to avail evidence, he will face the law and be charged accordingly. The RDC says that they want to reduce the corruption among district officials in the area and also reduce irritating issues of Masanafu sub-county.
And as the government is actually trying so hard to fight corruption in Uganda, and that particular way, the RDC says that they want to reduce corruption among district officials in the area and also reduce irritating issues of Masafu sub-county. And according to the RDC Achila, he has actually tasked the CAO, who's the Chief Administrative Officer, who is an accounting officer, to explain with evidence how the sub-county money was misused between his office and the office of the sub-county chief. They have also constituted a committee led by District Internal Security Officer, the DISO, to also investigate. If the CAO fails to avail the evidence, he will face the law and be charged accordingly. And if you look at the funds he has actually been summoned for, is 49 million Ugandan shillings, and according to sources, the funds were misappropriately handled by the Chief Administrative Officer. All right, now that brings us to the end of our local. Let's head to the international scene, and we stick to the East African Community Bloc, off to our neighbors in the East, that is Kenya, as the MPs have passed a bill making the National Hospital Insurance Fund, or the NHIF, mandatory for all Kenyans. All the Kenyans will be compelled to be members of the National Hospital Insurance Fund, with employers topping up contributions of those who pay less than 500 shillings, Kenyan shillings, monthly. Now, MPs last evening approved charges to the National Hospital Emergency Insurance Fund, that is the National Hospital Insurance Fund Act, which now makes it compulsory for every Kenyan above 18 years to contribute to the fund. The government-backed National Hospital Insurance Fund, or the amendment bill, will see all adults compelled to pay 500 Kenyan shillings monthly or 6,000 Kenyan shillings annually in a remodeled universal health coverage, UHC. And the scheme for outpatient and inpatient services, including maternity, dialysis, cancer treatment, and surgery. The MPs rejected the National Assembly Committee on Health amendments, which sought to have the national and county governments foot the bills for the 5.1 million poor households. Now, according to the bill, a person who has attained the age of 18 and is not a beneficiary shall register as a member of the fund, as a new clause introduced last evening to the bill. Now, a person who has, that is the National Hospital Insurance Fund bond, will actually determine the rate that the unemployed youth will pay the fund. And if you continue with the same story, employers with workers earning less than 12,000 Kenyan shillings will now be compelled to top up their employees' contributions to the National Hospital Insurance Fund. Currently, workers who earn between 8,000 Kenyan shillings and 11,999 shillings, that is Kenyan shillings, will pay 400 Kenyan shillings monthly. That is according to the National Hospital Insurance Fund rates. Now, the former sector workers contribute to the National Hospital Insurance Fund based on their salaries, with the highest contribution being 1,700 Kenyan shillings. Employers were facing up to 1,700 shillings accordingly, and this is an additional monthly statutory deduction per worker under the bill. But the leader of majority, Amos Chimunya, lobbied MPs to make changes to have employers top up employees' contribution instead of matching them. Now, official data shows that over 25.36 million Kenyans are aged 18 years and above, meaning the compulsory contributions would have added at least 16.36 million contributors, nearly tripling the National Hospital Insurance Fund membership in Kenya. That is in the land of Hakuna Matata. Now, if we come back here to the land, we've been actually identifying the idea of insurance. In Uganda, medical insurance, and I've always referred to my childhood when I do remember my father putting me on medical insurance, and I didn't know of its importance. It is after my insurance cover got, is it expired? Yes, got expired, and I could not renew because of the age bracket that I think the premium had, is when I realized the importance of insurance cover, more so in terms of medical insurance. So you can definitely see that the National Hospital Insurance Fund is mandatory in Kenya, and it shows that every employee has to pay a certain fund to the NHIF, which means even the employer, if you look at the employees, will have to pay part of it, and the employers are supposed to top up for their employees. It's more of the National Social Security Fund here in Uganda, NSSF fees that are actually being laid on board here in Uganda. Now, meanwhile, do stay with us here on Smart 24 TV. Oh, more is coming up on Smart Means Business, but after the break, I have more in regards to sports business. Don't touch your dial.